Dr. Alan Wright yawned as he stared at the radar screen in the National Weather Service office in Boulder, Colorado. It was Tuesday, and Tuesdays were usually boring. The coffee in his mug had gone cold hours ago, but he took a sip anyway. His job was to track weather patterns, and today a simple cold front was moving in from the northwest. Nothing special. "Hey, Alan, you seeing this?" called Judy from across the room. She pointed at her own screen with a confused look on her face. Alan walked over expecting to see a routine weather anomaly, but what he saw made no sense. The radar showed something massive appearing in the upper atmosphere, creating pressure waves unlike anything in their records. "Equipment malfunction?" he suggested, but even as he said it, he knew better. Their systems had triple redundancy. "All stations are reporting the same thing," Judy said, her voice growing tense. "And look at these gravitational readings." The phone rang, then another. Soon all the phones in the office were ringing as reports flooded in from weather stations across the country. Within an hour, the internet was exploding with amateur videos showing what appeared to be an enormous dark shape moving slowly through the clouds. By evening, the president was on television. The words she spoke would change human history forever. "We are not alone in the universe, and our visitors have arrived." The ship was massive, 3 miles long and shaped like a smooth river stone. It hovered 20 miles above Kansas, defying gravity with technology humans could barely comprehend. Smaller craft descended to various capitals around the world. The aliens called themselves the Zarnians, and they looked surprisingly similar to humans, though taller and with skin that shimmered like polished copper. 3 days after first contact, Dr. Wright received a call from his boss. "Alan, pack a bag. You're going to New York. The UN wants our best meteorologist there, and that's you." "Me? Why would aliens care about weather?" "Apparently that's exactly what they care about. They're fascinated by Earth's weather patterns. Just get on the plane." The United Nations building was surrounded by security and curious crowds when Alan arrived. Inside, diplomats from every nation mingled nervously with a delegation of 7. Zarnian's Alan was quickly introduced to Zeltor, the lead alien scientist. The Zarnian was nearly 7 feet tall with eyes that changed color as he spoke. "You study your planet's atmospheric conditions?" Zeltor asked in perfect English. The aliens had mastered Earth languages within hours of accessing our internet. "Yes, I'm a meteorologist. I forecast weather patterns." Zeltor made a strange gesture with his long fingers. "Fascinating. We would like permission to establish weather monitoring stations around your world." The UN Secretary General stepped forward. "May I ask why our weather is of such interest to you?" Zeltor exchanged glances with his colleagues. "Your atmospheric behavior violates several universal constants of planetary meteorology. We find this perplexing." After much discussion, the world leaders agreed to allow 10 Zarnian weather stations spread across different climate zones. Alan was assigned as the human liaison to work with them. The main research base was set up in Colorado, not far from Alan's usual office. On his first day working with the aliens, he met Vex Lin, a younger Zarnian scientist who seemed friendlier than the others. "Your weather prediction methods are primitive but surprisingly effective," Vex Lin told him while examining the National Weather Service equipment. "Though I cannot understand how you forecast with such limited tools." Alan felt slightly offended. "We've been doing this for over a century. Our models are quite sophisticated." Vex Lin's skin changed to a deeper copper tone, which Alan later learned indicated amusement. "Yet you still get it wrong regularly." "Weather is complicated," Alan defended. "There are too many variables to be right every time." Perhaps, there are patterns you cannot see. Over the next few weeks, Alan observed the aliens setting up their equipment. Their technology was unlike anything he had ever seen. Devices that could analyze air molecules individually from miles away, sensors that could detect temperature changes of 1,000th of a degree, and computers that could process this data instantly. Yet despite their advanced technology, the aliens grew visibly frustrated. Their weather predictions kept failing, sometimes more dramatically than the human forecasts. One day, after a thunderstorm formed exactly where the human models predicted but completely contrary to the Zarnian calculations, Zeltor confronted Alan in the research center. "Your data must be flawed." the alien scientist said firmly. These weather patterns defy the physical laws we have confirmed on 412 habitable worlds. Alan spread his hands. Maybe Earth is just different? No world is this different without cause, Zeltor insisted. The way your jet streams remain stable despite your planetary rotation speed and axial tilt is theoretically impossible. The efficiency of your water cycle exceeds maximum theoretical limits. But it's been this way throughout our recorded history, Alan said. Zeltor's eyes turned a deep purple. Exactly. This is why we must insist on examining your weather control technology. Alan blinked in confusion. Our what? The planetary scale systems you use to maintain atmospheric stability. We understand they may be classified technology, but scientific exchange must include honesty. Alan couldn't help but laugh, which clearly offended the alien. We don't have weather control technology. What you're seeing is completely natural. The alien scientist stared at Alan for a long moment. Dr. Wright, we have studied thousands of worlds. What you call natural weather would require either constant intervention or technology so advanced it would qualify as magic. If this is truly natural, your Earth would be unique in our known galaxy. Maybe it is, Alan suggested. Later that evening, as Alan was going through weather data in his office, trying to find ways to explain Earth's impossible weather to the aliens, his computer chimed with an incoming video call. It was Dr. Susan Miller from the Oceanography Department. Alan, are you seeing what these aliens are claiming? That our weather shouldn't be possible? Alan nodded wearily. They're convinced we must have some hidden weather control technology. They can't accept that it's natural. Susan looked troubled. The thing is, Alan, they're making me question things I've always taken for granted. Why is our weather so stable? Why don't our seasons kill us like they do on Mars? I don't know, Alan admitted, but I'm starting to think we should find out. If Earth really is unique, we need to understand why. As they talked, neither noticed the small drone hovering outside Alan's window, a Zarnian device recording their conversation. Above them, in the mothership orbiting Earth, Zeltor and the senior scientists were reaching a consensus. The humans were either hiding something extraordinary, or Earth represented a planetary anomaly that could overthrow centuries of established Zarnian science. Either way, they needed answers, and they were prepared to take drastic measures to get them. 6 months had passed since the Zarnians arrived on Earth. Dr. Alan Wright now spent most of his days inside the alien research facility they had built near Denver. The gleaming structure stood out against the Rocky Mountains, its curved walls, reflecting the Colorado sunshine. Today was important. Alan and Dr. Susan Miller had been invited to board the Zarnian mothership for the first time. As their shuttle approached the massive vessel hanging silently above Earth, Alan pressed his face against the window. "It's beautiful," he whispered. Susan nodded beside him, her eyes wide with wonder. The shuttle docked with a gentle bump. When the doors opened, Vex Lin greeted them. The young Zarnian scientist had become Alan's closest alien contact over the past months. "Welcome aboard," Vex Lin said, leading them down a curving corridor. "Senior scientist Zeltor is eager to share our conclusions with you." The meeting room had one entire wall made of transparent material, offering a breathtaking view of Earth below. 6 Zarnian scientists sat around a table that seemed to float without support. Zeltor stood at its head, his copper skin gleaming under the soft lights. "Dr. Wright, Dr. Miller," Zeltor greeted them formally. "We have completed our preliminary analysis of Earth's weather systems. We must discuss the implications." A 3-dimensional model of Earth appeared above the table, showing swirling weather patterns in vivid color. Alan recognized hurricane formations, jet streams, and global wind patterns. "What you see here should not exist," Zeltor stated flatly. "Earth's weather patterns cannot possibly be natural." Susan frowned. "What exactly do you mean by that?" A female Zarnian scientist named Pelqua touched the display, highlighting the jet streams. "These air currents should not maintain such stability given your planet's rotation and axial tilt. On every other world we have studied, similar jet streams would break down into chaos within days. Another scientist pointed to the ocean currents. Your water cycle exceeds theoretical efficiency maximums by 37%. This simply cannot occur without intervention. Zeltor's eyes shifted to a deep blue color. We have analyzed 3,412 habitable worlds across 27 star systems. None show the adaptive complexity that Earth's weather demonstrates. Alan felt confused. Adaptive complexity? What does that mean? Your weather systems respond to changes as if they were somehow intelligent, Zeltor explained. When one system grows too powerful, others emerge to balance it. Your hurricanes, for example, function as heat distribution mechanisms with remarkable precision. Susan leaned forward. But that's just physics and thermodynamics at work. Energy always seeks balance. Pelqua made a quick gesture with her long fingers. Not like this. Not with this level of efficiency. Zeltor brought up new images showing temperature variations across Earth's surface. According to universal constants of planetary physics, the temperature variations between your seasons should be far more extreme. Your northern regions should be uninhabitable in winter. Your equatorial regions should be too hot for complex life in summer. Alan looked at the data carefully. Have you considered that maybe your universal constants are wrong? The room fell silent. The Zarnians looked at each other, their skin tones shifting rapidly, and what Alan had learned was their equivalent of whispering. Zeltor's voice became cold. These constants have been verified across thousands of worlds for 17 centuries. Questioning them is like questioning the existence of gravity. But if Earth violates them, doesn't that mean they're not really constants? Susan asked. Pelqua stood up suddenly. The only logical conclusion is that Earth's weather is artificially managed. You have developed weather control technology so advanced and so thoroughly integrated into your civilization that you no longer recognize it as technology. Alan couldn't help but laugh. That's absurd. We can barely predict the weather, let alone control it. Perhaps your ancestors were more advanced, another Zarnian suggested. Many civilizations experience technological rises and falls. The technology could be automated, running for centuries without maintenance. Susan shook her head. We have weather records going back hundreds of years, and geological evidence of similar patterns going back millions of years. There was no advanced civilization controlling the weather in Earth's ancient past. Zeltor's eyes narrowed. Then explain how your planet maintains these impossible conditions. Neither Alan nor Susan had an answer. As they left the meeting room, Vexlin pulled Alan aside while the other scientists walked ahead. I believe you, Vexlin whispered. I've been studying your historical weather records independently. If your weather is artificial, the technology would have had to exist unchanged for millions of years. That seems even more improbable than a natural explanation. Alan felt relief that at least one Zarnian was open-minded. Will you help us find that natural explanation? Vexlin's skin rippled with colors Alan hadn't seen before. It would mean challenging everything in our scientific tradition. But yes, I am willing to consider alternatives. Meet me tonight in Research Lab 6. Bring all your paleoclimate data. Later that evening, as Alan gathered ice core records and geological climate data on his computer, his phone rang. It was Carol from the National Weather Service. Alan, something weird is happening. The Zarnians just asked for access to all our historic weather data, going back as far as possible. They especially want information about ancient civilizations and their weather recording methods. Alan frowned. They're convinced we must have weather control technology. They think it might be so old we've forgotten about it. That's ridiculous, Carol said. I know. But their entire scientific understanding is being challenged by our supposedly impossible weather. It's easier for them to believe we're hiding something than to accept that their fundamental theories might be wrong. After hanging up, Alan met Susan outside the alien facility. They showed their credentials and were admitted, making their way to Lab 6 where Vexlin waited. I've been analyzing your planet's unique features, Vexlin said once they were alone. Earth has several characteristics that make it unusual compared to other habitable worlds we've studied. The young alien brought up a display showing Earth and its moon. Your moon is unusually large compared to your planet. Most habitable worlds have either no moons or much smaller ones. This affects your axial stability. Susan nodded. Our moon helps keep Earth's tilt stable, which gives us consistent seasons. And your continental arrangement, Vex Lin continued, showing a map of Earth. The positioning of land masses creates ocean currents that distribute heat in ways we eyes haven't seen elsewhere. As they talked, the door suddenly slid open. Zeltor stood there, his eyes a dangerous shade of purple. Vex Lin, what are you doing with these humans without authorization? Vex Lin's skin paled. Senior scientist, I was just conducting additional research. Zeltor looked at the displays, then at Alan and Susan. You should know that the Zarnian Science Council has approved more direct methods of investigation. If humans won't reveal their weather technology willingly, we are authorized to discover it ourselves. What does that mean? Alan asked, feeling suddenly uneasy. It means, Zeltor said coldly, that we will begin atmospheric testing procedures tomorrow. We will introduce controlled disruptions to Earth's weather patterns to observe how the control mechanisms respond. Susan gasped. You can't do that. You could cause serious damage. Only if your control systems fail, Zeltor replied, which would prove my point that they exist. The testing begins at dawn. As Zeltor left, Alan turned to Vex Lin in alarm. What kind of disruptions is he talking about? Vex Lin's skin had turned almost white. Procedures that could potentially alter jet stream patterns temporarily. On a normal planet, this would cause minimal disruption, but if Earth truly has no weather control systems, it could cause chaos, Susan finished for him. We need to stop this. Alan barely slept that night. By morning, he had called everyone he knew who might be able to help stop the Zarnians from experimenting with Earth's weather. Susan had contacted her colleagues in the oceanography department. Together they managed to arrange an emergency meeting with government officials. Let me get this straight, said George Harris, the Secretary of Defense, as they sat in a hastily arranged conference room in Washington, D.C. These aliens think our weather is artificial and they're planning to disrupt it to prove their point. Exactly, Alan said. They're going to try to alter the jet stream patterns to see how our supposed weather control system responds. The Secretary of State Nancy Weber frowned. But we don't have any weather control system. What happens when they disrupt our actual natural weather? Potentially severe storms, flooding, unexpected temperature changes, Susan explained. It could affect millions of people. While the government officials discussed how to respond diplomatically, Alan's phone buzzed with a text from Vex Lin. Disruption devices already deployed over Pacific. Operation beginning in 6 hours. Alan showed the message to the others. We don't have time for diplomatic channels, they're already setting up. Within an hour, Air Force jets were scrambled toward the coordinates Vex Lin had secretly provided. News of the potential weather crisis leaked to the media, and soon the whole world knew what the Zarnians were planning. The president herself called the Zarnian ambassador, demanding an immediate halt to the weather experiments. The ambassador seemed surprised by the strong reaction. If your weather is truly natural as you claim, then you have nothing to fear, the ambassador said calmly. And if it is controlled as our scientists believe, then the control systems will simply counteract our disruptions. And if you're wrong, you could cause weather disasters across half the planet, the president responded. Meanwhile, Alan and Susan were flown to the nearest military base to the Zarnian Pacific research vessel. From there, a small team including Alan, Susan, and Dr. John Lee, a paleoclimatologist who had joined their effort, were transported by helicopter toward the alien ship hovering above the ocean. We brought the evidence you requested, Vex Lin said when they landed on the Zarnian vessel. The young alien scientist had agreed to help them present their case to the senior researchers. Zeltor and 3 other senior Zarnian scientists waited in the ship's control room. Massive devices were already extending from the bottom of the vessel, pointed toward the clouds below. We have less than 2 hours, Alan said urgently. Please review our evidence before you activate those machines. Dr. Lee stepped forward with ancient ice core samples and geological records. These contain air bubbles and sediment layers going back hundreds of thousands of years. They show the same weather patterns we see today existed long before humans had any technology at all. Zeltor barely glanced at the samples. Inconclusive. The controlling systems could be millions of years old, created by a predecessor civilization or even visitors like ourselves. That's completely speculative, Susan argued. You have no evidence for that. And you have no explanation for how your weather violates universal constants, Pelqua countered. The argument continued as the countdown for the disruption experiment ticked down. Alan noticed that the Zarnians were divided. Several younger scientists seemed uncomfortable with the planned experiment, while the senior team remained convinced of their theory. Just as tensions reached their peak, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. A Zarnian technician rushed into the control room. Senior scientist, multiple aircraft are approaching from all directions. They appear to be military. On the screens around them, they could see dozens of fighter jets from various nations forming a perimeter around the Zarnian vessel. You're threatening an attack? Zeltor asked, his skin darkening with anger. No, Alan said, but we can't allow you to experiment with our atmosphere. Those planes will stop any attempt to disrupt our weather patterns. As they spoke, a new message came through from the Zarnian mothership. The commander sounded upset as he spoke to Zeltor, in the Zarnian language. When the communication ended, Zeltor turned to his team. The experiment is suspended by order of the Science Council, he announced reluctantly. Apparently, this situation has become a diplomatic crisis. Alan felt relief wash over him, but he knew this was only a temporary solution. The Zarnians still didn't accept Earth's weather as natural. 2 days later, Alan, Susan, and Dr. Lee were invited to a formal hearing before the full Zarnian Science Council aboard the mothership. The tension in the room was obvious as scientists from both worlds faced each other across a large chamber. Galmore, the head of the Science Council, spoke first. This situation has become untenable. Our research teams cannot proceed with their work while this fundamental disagreement exists. Alan nodded. We agree. That's why we've brought our top scientists from different fields to present a comprehensive case. Dr. Lee went first, showing detailed climate records from throughout Earth's history. Susan presented oceanographic data demonstrating how Earth's oceans regulated temperature. Other human scientists showed how forests affected rainfall and how mountains shaped wind patterns. Hours into the presentations, Vexlin stood up and addressed the council. Honored elders, I believe there is another possibility we haven't considered. What if Earth represents a planetary evolution we haven't encountered before? The council members shifted uncomfortably as Vexlin continued. On most worlds we've studied, biology and meteorology are separate systems, but on Earth they appear to be interconnected. What if life itself has shaped this planet's weather over billions of years? Galmore frowned. You suggest primitive biology could create systems more efficient than our best environmental engineers? Not overnight, Vexlin explained. But over billions of years of evolution? Perhaps. Alan stepped forward. Earth has something unique. A large moon stabilizing our axis, oceans covering most of our surface, and life that's been evolving for over 3 billion years. What if all these factors together created a system that looks designed but actually evolved naturally? A murmur spread through the Zarnian scientists. This was clearly a revolutionary idea for them. There is a simple way to test this theory, Susan suggested. Let us work together to create new weather models that incorporate biological factors as active components of the weather system, not just passive recipients. Galmore considered this, then nodded slowly. A joint research project might be acceptable, but be warned, if we discover evidence of artificial control systems, we will expect full disclosure. As the meeting ended, several Earth nations saw an opportunity in the aliens' confusion. The Chinese representative approached Galmore privately. Perhaps China could share some of our weather modification techniques, he suggested slyly. For the right technological exchange, of course. Not to be outdone, the Russian diplomat made similar insinuations to another Zarnian official. Soon, several countries were hinting they might possess the very weather control technology the Zarnians sought. Alan watched with growing concern as the diplomatic situation grew more complex. "This is getting out of hand," he told Susan and Vexlin. "Now everyone's claiming credit for something that doesn't even exist." "We need proof," Vexlin said. "Definitive proof that Earth's weather is natural, and we need it quickly before the situation escalates further." The joint research team set up their headquarters in a new facility built specifically for this project. Both human and Zarnian scientists worked side by side, though tensions remained high. Alan, Susan, Vexlin, and Dr. Lee formed the core group, leading the investigation. Even Zeltor participated, though he remained skeptical of the humans' claims. "We need to identify exactly why Earth's weather seems so impossible to the Zarnians," Alan said during their first planning meeting. "Let's break it down into specific questions." Susan wrote on a large board. "Why is Earth's weather more stable than expected?" Vexlin added, "Why do Earth's jet streams maintain consistent patterns despite variable conditions?" Dr. Lee contributed, "How does Earth maintain its relatively narrow temperature range compared to other planets?" The team divided into smaller groups, each focusing on a different aspect of the problem. Days turned into weeks as they gathered data, ran computer models, and debated findings. One morning, Dr. Lisa Garcia, a botanist who had joined the team, made an interesting observation while reviewing satellite imagery. "Look at these forest patterns and the cloud formations above them," she said, pointing to images of the Amazon rainforest. "There's a clear correlation between dense vegetation and consistent rainfall patterns." Vexlin leaned forward, his eyes changing to a curious yellow color. "Show me more examples." They pulled up images from forests around the world, comparing them with weather data. A pattern emerged. Areas with large forests had more regular rainfall than similar areas without forests. "Trees release moisture into the air through transpiration," Dr. Garcia explained. "They essentially pump water from the ground into the atmosphere." "We know this," Zeltor said dismissively. "Plant transpiration is a basic biological process." "Yes, but look at the scale," Dr. Garcia insisted. "Earth's forests release billions of gallons of water into the air daily. They're not just passive recipients of weather, they're active participants in creating it." This idea sparked intense debate among the scientists. The Zarnians had never considered that a planet's biology could significantly influence its weather patterns on a global scale. Meanwhile, Alan and Susan were working with climate historians to compile evidence of weather patterns throughout human history. They found something fascinating in ancient records. "Weather patterns have shifted slightly whenever there were major changes to Earth's forests," Alan reported to the team. "When humans cut down large forests in Europe during the Middle Ages, regional rainfall patterns changed. When new farming practices spread across continents, local climates adjusted." Dr. Lee brought in additional evidence from ice cores and geological samples. "The same relationship appears in prehistoric records. Earth's climate and its biosphere evolved together, each influencing the other." Vexlin spent days analyzing this data before approaching Zeltor and the other senior Zarnian scientists. "I believe we've been looking at this wrong," he said carefully. "On the worlds we've studied before, biological systems adapt to the planet's weather. But on Earth, it appears the weather and biological systems adapt to each other. They're interconnected, in a way we haven't seen before." Zeltor remained unconvinced. "Even if biology influences weather patterns, it doesn't explain the remarkable stability of Earth's overall climate." That's when Alan had a breakthrough. He rushed into the lab one morning, excitement clear on his face. "I think I've found something. It's not just forests. It's everything working together." He pulled up a new computer model on the main screen. "We've been studying individual factors in isolation, but Earth's weather stability comes from multiple systems working together. The moon stabilizes our axial tilt, which gives us consistent seasons. The oceans absorb and distribute heat. The forests and other ecosystems regulate moisture cycles. Even microscopic ocean algae affect cloud formation and rainfall." Susan added, "And all these systems have been evolving together for billions of years, each adapting to changes in the others." Vexlin's skin rippled with excitement. A planetary-scale balanced system that evolved naturally over billions of years? Is this possible? The team worked furiously to develop a new comprehensive model that incorporated all these factors. When they ran the simulation, the results were striking. Their model predicted Earth's current weather patterns with far greater accuracy than any previous Zarnian model. This still doesn't prove Earth's weather is natural, Zeltor argued during a review session. It could be that your ancient weather control technology works by manipulating these biological systems. Just as the debate was heating up again, a massive hurricane formed in the Atlantic Ocean. The Zarnian scientists watched with great interest as it developed. This is a perfect test case, Alan suggested. Let's use our new model to predict how this hurricane will behave. If we're right about Earth's natural systems, our predictions should be accurate. Both human and Zarnian teams created predictions. The traditional Zarnian models showed the hurricane growing to catastrophic proportions and moving directly toward the east coast of the United States. The new model, incorporating biological factors, predicted the hurricane would weaken as it moved north and eventually turned back out to sea. For 5 tense days, scientists from both worlds watched as the hurricane tracked across the Atlantic. Government officials prepared for the worst, evacuating coastal areas based on the Zarnian predictions. But as the days passed, the hurricane behaved exactly as the new model had predicted. It weakened significantly and curved away from land, causing only minor coastal flooding before dissipating over cooler waters. This is unexpected, Zeltor admitted as they reviewed the data afterward. Our traditional models failed completely because they didn't account for how Earth's biological systems affect weather patterns, Alan explained. The cooler ocean, currents that turned the hurricane were strengthened by underwater forest systems that we've only recently discovered. The hurricane itself triggered changes in air pressure over forested regions that helped push it away from land. Vexlin had been quiet, analyzing the results carefully. Finally, he spoke. I believe we need to consider a revolutionary possibility. What if biological evolution can create planetary systems as sophisticated as any design technology? The room fell silent as the implications of this statement sank in. For the Zarnians, this was a fundamental challenge to their scientific worldview. They had always viewed biology and planetary systems as separate domains. Dr. Garcia stepped forward. With one final piece of evidence, we've found something remarkable in our forest studies. When environmental conditions change, Earth's forests adapt their transpiration rates and even their growing patterns in ways that help stabilize regional weather. It's almost as if the entire biosphere functions as a single regulatory system, a planetary organism, Vexlin whispered. Not designed by intelligence but evolved through natural selection over billions of years. The Zarnian scientists looked at each other, their skin tones shifting through colors that Alan had never seen before. Something profound was changing in their understanding of how planets worked. We need to take these findings to the Science Council, Zeltor said finally. If this is true, we may need to reconsider many of our fundamental theories about habitable worlds. Alan felt a mixture of triumph and wonder. They had discovered something the advanced aliens had never considered possible, that life itself could engineer planetary conditions through evolution, creating systems as complex and effective as any design technology. 1 year after the Zarnians first arrived on Earth, the grand hall of their mothership was filled with scientists from both worlds. The atmosphere was solemn but excited as the Zarnian Science Council prepared to announce their official findings. Alan sat between Susan and Dr. Garcia in the front row. Behind them were Dr. Lee and dozens of other human scientists who had contributed to the joint research project. On the other side of the aisle sat the Zarnian research teams, with Vexlin in a position of honor near the front. Even Zeltor's posture seemed less rigid than usual. Galmor, the head of the Zarnian Science Council, stepped onto the raised platform. His copper skin gleamed under the lights as he addressed the gathered crowd. After careful review of all evidence and extensive testing of new models, the Science Council has reached its conclusion regarding Earth's weather systems, he announced. We officially acknowledge that Earth's weather patterns are indeed natural phenomena. A wave of reactions swept through the room. The human scientists exchanged relieved glances while many of the Zarnians shifted colors rapidly in what Alan now recognized as their expression of surprise or strong emotion. Furthermore, Galmore continued, "We recognize that Earth represents a previously undocumented evolutionary pathway. The Zarnian textbooks on comparative planetary systems will undergo their first major revision in 7 centuries." After the formal announcement, the hall broke into smaller groups as scientists from both worlds discussed the implications. Alan found himself standing with Zeltor, who had been his primary opponent throughout the investigation. "I owe you an apology, Dr. Wright," Zeltor said, his eyes a calm blue color. It was easier to believe humans were hiding technology than to accept that our fundamental theories needed revision. Alan smiled. "Science is about being willing to change our minds when the evidence demands it. You did that in the end." Zeltor's skin rippled slightly. "It will take time for all our scientists to fully accept these new ideas, but I must admit, Earth has taught us something remarkable about the potential of evolutionary processes." Across the room, Susan was deep in conversation with Pelqua, who had become a strong advocate for the new planetary models. "We're already applying these principles to understand weather anomalies on 3 other planets in nearby systems," Pelqua explained. "Preliminary results suggest they too have biologically influenced weather systems, though none as advanced as Earth's." The celebration continued late into the evening. As things were winding down, Alan found Vexlin standing alone by the large window overlooking Earth. "You seem thoughtful," Alan said, joining him. Vexlin's skin glowed softly in the dim light. "I've been offered leadership of a new Zarnian institute dedicated to biospheric meteorology. We'll be studying how life and atmosphere interact across different worlds." "That's wonderful," Alan said. "You deserve it after everything you risked to help us." "It will change how we terraform planets," Vexlin explained. "Before, we engineered environments and then introduced basic life forms. Now we understand that the most stable systems develop when life and environment evolve together." The following weeks brought a flurry of activity as the Zarnians prepared to depart Earth. They would leave behind several small research stations to continue studying Earth's unique systems, but most of their scientists were eager to apply their new knowledge elsewhere in the galaxy. On the final day before the mothership departed, a special ceremony was held at the United Nations. The Secretary General presented awards to the key scientists from both worlds who had worked on the project. Alan, Susan, Dr. Garcia, and Dr. Lee received the highest honors from both human and Zarnian authorities. "We came to Earth expecting to find advanced technology," Galmore said in his address to the Assembly. "Instead, we found something more impressive. A demonstration of how evolution can create planetary-scale systems of remarkable complexity and stability." After the ceremony, Alan returned to his office at the National Weather Service in Boulder. It seemed strange to be back, where everything had started, looking at the same radar screens and weather maps, yet nothing was really the same anymore. "How does it feel to be back to normal weather forecasting?" Judy asked as she passed his desk. Alan laughed. "Normal. I'm not sure Earth weather will ever seem normal again, now that we understand how special it really is." His computer chimed with an incoming video call. It was Vex Lin calling from the mothership as it prepared to leave Earth orbit. "I wanted to say goodbye properly," the Zarnian said. "And to show you something." Vex Lin's image was replaced by a stunning visualization of Earth, showing the complex interactions between oceans, atmosphere, and biosphere in real time. Colored flows represented energy and moisture moving through the system in perfect balance. "This is how we see your world now," Vexlin explained as his face reappeared. "Not as a planet with weather, but as a single interconnected system where life and atmosphere danced together in a balance that took billions of years to perfect." "It's beautiful," Alan said, genuinely moved by the image. "We've added a new term to our scientific vocabulary," Vexlin continued. "Earth-type biospheric equilibrium. It's already being included in our updated textbooks." After saying goodbye to Vexlin, Alan walked outside. He looked up at the sky, feeling the warm summer breeze on his face. A distant thunderstorm was forming. Over the mountains, its clouds building into towering columns. To the people driving by, it was just another summer storm. But Alan now saw it differently, as part of a vast, complex system that had evolved over billions of years. Each raindrop, each gust of wind, each temperature change was connected to the forests, oceans, and every living thing on the planet. Alan's phone buzzed with a message from Susan. "Turn on the news. They're interviewing Galmore one last time." Before departure, he hurried back inside and found a television just in time to catch the final question from a reporter. "What was the most surprising thing you learned about Earth during your stay?" Galmore considered for a moment before answering. "In all our searching for intelligent design across the stars, we never considered that evolution itself could be the most sophisticated designer of all." As the mothership departed Earth the next day, visible as a bright star moving across the morning sky, weather stations around the world reported perfectly ordinary conditions. Sunny in some places, raining in others, hot at the equator, cool at the poles, winds blowing, clouds forming, all completely natural, all utterly impossible by the standards of every other known world, all part of what made Earth not just habitable, but special among the stars. In his office, Alan looked at the standard weather map on his screen and smiled. The aliens had been right about one thing. Earth's weather was indeed extraordinary. Not because of any hidden technology, but because of the remarkable story of life and planet evolving together for billions of years. Outside his window, rain began to fall from a passing cloud, nurturing the green landscape below. Ordinary rain, falling from an extraordinary world.